Hello again. Welcome to part 3 of ECHO's 4-part series, Billing 101 for Behavioral Health Care. My name is Chris Williams. I'm the Marketing Director for the ECHO Group. And today, our Account Manager, Callie Zumpfe, will walk you through the next section of the revenue cycle. Before we turn things over to Callie, just a couple of things. First, as we go through the information, and if you have a question, you'll notice that there's a spot on your screen as you watch the webinar where you can ask a question, type in a question. Toward the end of our time here, in about 20 minutes or so, we'll ask the questions. We'll pose them to Callie, and she'll take care of them. And if there's anything we can't answer, we'll follow up with you afterward. A little bit about the ECHO Group. The ECHO Group, we develop enterprise software applications that have been designed specifically for and are used by hundreds of behavioral health organizations across the nation. We have a suite of applications including electronic health records, government reporting and compliance applications, clinical and financial decision support, a completely integrated electronic health record. We also offer revenue cycle services. We've been doing that since 2001. We're really good at it as well, and that's why we're talking a little bit about billing for behavioral health care today. If you have any questions at all about what we do and how we do it, and you'd like to learn more, you can go to our website, echoman.com, or reach out and give us a call or drop us an email. Callie's going to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time, so without further ado, I'll turn things over to Callie Zumpfe. Callie, it's all yours.
All right, let's get started. Thank you so much, Chris, for that introduction. My name is Callie Zumpfe. I am an account manager at ECHO, and I get the pleasure of being your presenter today for our Billing 101 Part 3 session. I would like to truly thank all of you for taking the time out of your day to tune in. I know you are all very busy people. My goal is that each and every one of you will take at least one thing away from today's session. During the session, I will start by giving everyone a review of what was covered in last week's session. Then I will go over some important standard billing terms that have been and will be used throughout these sessions. And then lastly, the bulk of today's session will be used for the next 3 spokes on our revenue cycle wheel. Okay, so before we get to the fun stuff, let's do a pop quiz of last week's session where Ashley covered the revenue cycle, charge posting, claim submission, and rejections. All right, I won't really make you do a pop quiz, but if this was an interactive session, then I might have. Here's your refresher. The revenue cycle is the management of information in a client account from the day the charge was created to the final receipt of payment. Next, charge posting. It is the actual processing of service entries that can be billed to the payer. It seems like it should be a simple step, but really it's one of the most crucial to pay attention to since it lays the foundation for the rest of the cycle. Next, claim submission. It is the electronic or manual submission of data to the payer. When electronically billing, you use an 837 file to submit, and we always recommend submitting your claims this way whenever it is possible. Finally, rejections. These are claims that are returned by the payer before hitting the adjudication process. It's so important to pay attention to your rejection reports since the payer will not keep a record of the rejection at the claim level, therefore giving you no information if you call to follow up on a claim. And that, my friends, wraps up our review of last week's session. Now, I know I have a very smart audience here, but let's go over these standard billing terms so that I'm confident we're all on the same page when these terms are mentioned during our session. Adjudicate. Adjudicate is the process a payer takes to either pay or deny a claim after matching the patient to their benefits. Procedure code. This is a code that is used to tell the payer the particular service that has been rendered. Modifier. Code for providers to indicate a service or procedure has been altered but has not been changed in its definition or code. It can, for example, be used to signify what credentials the rendering physician holds, or as an indicator that an extra level of detail was involved with that particular service. Rejected claim / line item. Claim that is returned before the adjudication process with a 999 file. These claims need to be corrected and then resubmitted. And then finally, zero paid claims. A claim payment of $0 that is received on an explanation of benefits from the payer. You can also call these a denied claim. Okay, so now that we got the necessities out of the way, we can get into what you're all here for today. I'm so happy that Echo picked this session for me because these 3 topics that I'll be discussing with you are what I'm truly passionate about. Let's start with payment posting. The title in itself is pretty self-explanatory. It is the process that you choose to record a payment of a claim into your electronic health record. Payments are posted to the client account, thereby reducing an open balance. When posting payments at the claim level, you have the choice of manually entering them or importing them using an 835 electronic remit. So why is payment posting important? I can think of 2 great reasons. Posting payments positively affect 2 important numbers that an executive team will look at on a regular basis: total collections and accounts receivable. Collections will go up while simultaneously open AR goes down. A little side note on this. When I was a biller, I was lucky enough to have really good timing with our weekly finance review with the executive staff. Payment from one of our largest payers would come in weekly every Monday morning, giving me about a 3-hour window before the meeting. You can bet that every Monday I put aside everything else and got that payment posted. That way, when I walked into the meeting, I had the best possible numbers to provide them with. So a little advice for any billers on the call: try to nail down the time that the executive team usually runs their reports, and do your best to at least have the biggest checks posted by then. Not only is it important to post these in a strategic, timely manner, it's also even more important that you are reconciling them with the amount of the deposit. After you have posted the payments, but before you have processed them, check your reconciling reports to make sure they match the total deposit. I have a report that really helps me when reconciling that can be pulled as a PDF or in Excel. When manually posting, you will from time to time find your total payments may be off a little due to human error. It happens to the best of us. What I like to do is use the Excel version of my reconciling report to see where I may be off. Let's say I was off by $55. I would use the spreadsheet and filter for any payments that are $55. If there are any, I would then compare it to what I posted. But let's say they weren't any $55 payments. I would then check the spreadsheet for 2 separate payments that add up to $55. Usually by doing this check, I would find the error about 85% of the time. However, you can remove the risk of human error completely by posting with an 835. Importing with an 835 can also save you a ton of time. Whenever you have an 835 available, you really should be taking advantage of them. As humans, we are creatures of habit. I have some billing friends that have been manually posting for years, and I have to admit, they have become insanely fast at doing it. We must be open to change, though. I helped walk someone through importing an 835 once, and instantly their reaction was, I can do this way faster than when posting it myself. And of course it's true. This was their first time posting with an 835, so of course it will take longer. It takes a number of attempts to build your rhythm and get into a solid workflow. I asked them to remember how long it took them to manually post their payments the first couple times they had ever done it. We have to give change a chance and always be open to improving our routine. While posting the payments, it is also a great idea to post the denials too, while you're working with that specific explanation of benefits. Denials should be posted for informational purposes so that it is documented on the client account. We will talk a little more about that as we move to denial management. All right, I'll be honest, I absolutely love working denials, so I'm very excited to have come to this stage of our revenue cycle. Denials happen after a payer processes a claim, but due to a billing error that is specified with a code, it does not get paid. Denial management is the actual process of working through the denied claims, fixing any errors, and rebilling to get a payment. Of course, sometimes rebilling isn't enough and they have to be appealed, but that will be covered after this topic. The most important part of denial management is that your facility gets paid on these claims that get denied. Sometimes the denial reasons are very fair, but sometimes it could even be due to an error that the payer made. Either way, your facility provided the service and deserves to be compensated for it. You also only have a limited time to fix these and resubmit. Often it's not very long that we have, maybe only 60 days in some cases. So it's important that you are working these efficiently to get these corrected. Denials can at times represent an underlying larger issue. For example, by working just one denial, you could come to realize that you've been billing a specific procedure code with a wrong modifier. By identifying that in one claim, you can now make sure that no other claim goes out like that in the future. As I mentioned before, denials should be worked right away since they do have an expiration in the form of a timely filing limit. To take that one step further, make sure you have documented exactly what the timely filing limits are for each payer that you bill to. A payer will most likely have two different filing limits, one for a new claim to be submitted and another for a denied claim to be submitted. Make sure you are familiar with both. This will help you prioritize the denials you work. You will find that some denials are so simple to fix and may only take just a few minutes of your time. Imagine if you missed the deadline to resubmit those. It is not easy explaining to the executive staff that revenue was lost because a simple denial was not worked in time. It happens all the time since as billers, we are all very busy. I recommend finding the most efficient way to resubmit a claim, and that is usually done by correcting the claim on the payer portal. If you have the option of doing that, please always try to do it that way. By correcting a claim right through the portal, the payer will process it quicker than if you rebuild it through your EHR. And the faster you get money in the door, the better you are going to look when financial reports are reviewed. One thing to keep in mind is to not narrow your work to just the single denial you are working on. Keep in mind that it's a very good possibility that there is more denials just like you are working for the patient that the claim was denied for. It's always a good idea to check the client account for all open claims that they have. For example, if you received an eligibility denial, it'd be a good idea to check if there are any other claims you recently sent to that payer for that patient. This way you are correcting future denials before you even receive them. Sometimes we do have to make a call to the payer, and if you have had to do that before, then you understand how awful it is. You're usually put on hold forever, and then more than half the time you're connected with someone that just doesn't really like their job and they have little interest to help you out. If you do come across someone that is particularly helpful, try your best to get their email or a direct number for them. These type of people that are good at their job and want to help you are very hard to come by. So when you find one, try to hold on to them. I actually practice this in my own personal life. I have a primary and secondary insurance, so many times I'll find that the facility I went to does not bill my secondary insurance correctly with a primary EOB. I can't wait on them to bill correctly, so I always send this information on my own as the patient. This is not a hard thing to do for me since I have a contact. Her name is Sherry, and I emailed her directly with a scanned copy of the primary EOB, and she processed it right away for me. Now, I know that we won't always have the chance to do this for every payer. So at the very least, know who is your insurance representative for that payer. This way, you can always have someone to contact if you need to escalate an issue. Another tool you can use is your denial report. Remember earlier that I mentioned at the time you post the payments, you should always post the denials. This is meant for informational purposes only. You're posting a denial, you're not writing it off, so that the denial you received can be posted to the client account. This is very helpful for a couple of reasons. When you're doing accounts receivable work in the future, you will easily be able to tell when and why a claim got denied. This is also helpful for the executive team. With the use of a denial report, you may find that almost half of your denials for the month were due to authorization. By providing these numbers to management, they can follow up in the gap of workflow to identify what is causing this. Any way that the biller can help reduce the amount of denials means less work that has to be spent on denial management. Finally, always remember to document the work you have done to correct a denial. In the case that you have rebilled a claim after correcting it, but it doesn't get paid, it's good to have notes to look back on the process you took to correct it. Appeals are necessary when you've done everything in your power to correct a denial, but it's still not getting paid. The appeal procedure is the #1 thing that gets neglected by the billing team, since it's low on the priority list and there's just many other things to do. I do agree that the process of appealing is long and tedious, and often we find it's not even worth the manpower when you are unlikely to get it paid. However, it's still a very important piece of the revenue cycle, since just like denials, your facility deserves to be compensated for the services they have provided. The great thing about appealing is you can do this even if you are after the timely filing deadlines. If done properly, you could potentially get payment on many claims that were considered to be a lost cause. This is also a great learning experience. Since nobody enjoys doing an appeal, it is motivation to get these claims sent out clean in the first place, or work them efficiently when they get denied. The first thing you'll want to do is familiarize yourself with a proper procedure to handle an appeal for the payer you are appealing to. All insurances are different. Some like a specific form filled out and mailed to a specific appeal address. Some give you an option to fax right to their claims department, and others have an appeal process you can make right on their portal page. If you're not sure of how to handle the appeal, always make the call and ask how it should be done. Remember to always document the proper way. That way, everyone in your facility is aware of how the process should be done in case this task has to be shared amongst the team. Just like denials, always document what you have done somewhere on the client account. That way, if you ever have to look back on the claim in the future, you will know what was attempted to get it paid. Appeals are not just limited to one claim at a time. Often you may find that you can batch appeal. Something could have gone wrong in the billing cycle where you found a number of claims being denied for the same reason. Absolutely check with the payer first to see if these claims can be appealed as a group. It's also very important to set yourself a reminder to follow up on an appeal. It's just one of those things that can be easily forgotten, and you can't expect to always get a response from the payer. Based on the way you submitted the claim, set a reminder to follow up with them for a reasonable amount of time for the payer to have received and reviewed it. A great way to keep organized is to track your success rate with appeals. It's good to know what appeals have worked for you in the past and which ones haven't. You may want to prioritize your appeals based on this. Submit the ones that you know have a greater chance of getting paid first. Anything you can do to get money in the door quicker is going to always have a positive impact. Lastly, just like denial management, it's always nice to have a good contact that can possibly track the appeals that you have submitted. Go ahead and utilize this person in any way you can. That wraps up what I have prepared for this session. I hope that I have left you with a few ideas that you can utilize in your workflow. Every facility is very unique, so finding what works best for you is completely up to you. If you take anything away from the session, please let it be that we should always be striving to improve our workflow and always be open to change if it means we could potentially be more efficient at our jobs. Billing for behavioral health is absolutely a complex job that keeps us busy. So any little thing you can do to tweak your workflow can make all the difference. Now I'd like to know what questions you have for me.
Oh, we've got questions.
Okay.
The first one, I'm just curious about this passion about working denied claims, but we can set that one aside. You mentioned, going back to the denial management process, you used a acronym, EOB, several times, especially when you were talking about your personal services. What is EOB?
EOB is an explanation of benefits. So it is the actual form that is sent to your facility that explains what has been paid, what has been denied. It's usually in the form of paper or on PDF. Gives the reason codes of the denials and all the information that you should need.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of times items that were specific to payers. There's the payer portal, becoming familiar with that process, and if that's available to you, establishing contacts and all of that. On average, how many folks or how many different payers will someone in a billing department for an organization need to manage or juggle?
That's definitely completely up to the facility and their workflow and how big they are. Depending on if they're a small facility, it's possible that it could be just one person juggling the whole thing. And as for a nonprofit agency, it wouldn't be too uncommon to see that, since the cost of paying employees is expensive and they're not there to make a profit. It's to actually, give services to the community. But with that being said, it is always a best practice too, if you have multiple people on your billing team, to give them one certain payer or a couple certain payers to work with, because being familiar with that one payer helps you be more efficient at your job. So if you have about 4 people on your billing team, it might be good to have just one person for Medicaid, Medicare. Well, that might be a bit much because those two are beasts. So maybe 2 people for that, and one person looking at Blue Cross or United. So that it can definitely, it's up to you to see what workflow is best, but I always recommend, if you can keep someone focused on one particular payer, you're going to see better results.
Okay, and so along the lines of organization and keeping things streamlined to maximize efficiencies, you mentioned in a couple of different areas about the importance of documentation and keeping notes and whatnot. When you're documenting your conversations with payers or your interactions or anything, when you're looking at a claim that's been denied, is there specific information that you want to document to have if you need to refer back to it?
Yep, sure, absolutely, and great question. So if you're calling in, let's say about a claim, right, a claim that got denied, and you have someone that's helping you with it, what you want to document on the client account is the day you called and who you talked to. They always give you a name, and they also always give you a reference number so that if you have to call back and work this claim again, you don't have to tell the same story over to another person. They can look up the reference ID and they can see right away what's happened on that particular date of service. So it's always important to track that. Just the main points that went over. You don't have to write a story because nobody wants to read a story when you're going back to look at what has happened with a claim. Keep it short and simple with all the important information that you need.
Okay, going all the way back to payment posting. You mentioned keeping track of timely filings, so the amount of time that folks have to post that or to submit that. If you do miss those deadlines, is there any sort of recourse for folks to, one way or another, go back and try to reclaim some of that money that was left on the table because the deadline was missed? Right.
So the only way you're going to do that is through the appeal procedure. So if you've missed your deadline for timely filing, then hope is not lost. Don't ever give up. You can always try to appeal, and the best way to start that process is to get someone on the phone that is helpful, like your insurance representative. They can tell you, they can, give you the chances that you might see of actually getting them paid, and they'll hopefully give you the best way to do it. And I have a real life experience when I was a biller. Something happened in the system, and it happens. We're human, right? So somehow a whole batch of claims worth $20,000 got rejected at the payer, and nobody paid attention to the 999 report to say that it did. So months go on, and you realize, oh, there's $20,000 worth of claims I never got paid on, and guess what? 60-day timely filing is up. Well, we called the representative at this payer, and they were so helpful. They walked us through it. We did all the steps we had to do and that they gave us. And in the end, they got paid, less than a month later. So that would have been an awful thing to try to explain to the executive team, because $20,000 is quite a lot of money. But
okay, so to your point, don't ever give up. And speaking of not giving up, and we only have a couple of minutes left. One last question. You've mentioned how hard it is, that the appeals process can be challenging and difficult. At what point do you throw in the towel? What is too much effort for based on the amount of revenue that you're trying to reclaim?
It is important to recognize when you put too much work into something. It's easy to get carried away with a claim that's only going to pay $50. So you do have to recognize when you have worked on it too much. I say give the appeal procedure a shot, set the reminder, follow up on it, and based on what they tell you happened with the appeal, then you decide whether it's worth continuing or not. Because doing a second appeal and starting over from scratch is just not a good idea. So if they insinuate that there's a chance, oh, yes, we'll accept this appeal, but you just forgot this one little thing, then go for it. But if it's, if they tell you, oh, appeal it again and we'll escalate it to the next level, don't believe them, and just move on, especially if it's not for very much money.
Callie, that's all the time we have for now. Thank you very much, and thank you for tuning in and listening for Part 3. Remember, Part 4 is a week from today, same time, same BAT station. We'll have Scott Taylor, our Sales Director for the Southeast, bring us home in our 4-part series covering accounts receivable, patient billing, and the GL posting and month-end reports. In the meantime, if you haven't been able to attend all of the 3 sessions that have occurred to this point, you will receive an email with a link for access to the recordings and the slide presentations for each of the first 3 parts. So all of that information will be accessible to you. If you have any questions at all about the information, feel free to reach out to us, and we would be glad to follow up with you personally. So thank you again for joining us, and until next week, have a great weekend, everybody.